If you were to boil film down to its fundamental parts, it's really a marriage between two things: visuals and sound. David Fincher has always pushed the envelope when it comes to the visual aspect of his films and has been a strong advocate even for the use of CGI, even all the way back in 1999 with Fight Club. Visuals stand out. They're often the first thing that people notice when watching a film, but sound is different. By design, you're not meant to notice sound because good sound design is meant to be paired so perfectly with the visuals that they go unnoticed. In most films, the only sound recorded on set on the day of shooting is dialogue, especially if it's in a controlled environment like a closed set. This ensures the purest quality of the actors' voices, which makes mixing and EQing that sound much easier than if there's a bunch of background noise to filter out. Everything else you hear has been added in later in post, an effect done so seamlessly that most people would never notice, like this scene in The Social Network.
I was crashing there for a little bit while I'm taking care of some things, but she's done for the summer, so she's back at her parents' place.
The loud club music, the faint sound of the rest of the crowd cut underneath, but this is what it sounded like during filming.
I was crashing there for a little bit while I'm taking care of some things, but she's back at her parents' place. She's done for the summer.
The homeless rock star of Palo Alto.
Yeah.
As a sound designer, you are responsible for everything the audience will hear over the course of the film, with exception to the original music.
Similar to what a cinematographer would do in terms of photography and the images, a sound designer's job is to create the same environment you see with your eyes, but with your ears.
And while Fight Club hits the nail on the head throughout, with scenes at the office or at Lou's Tavern, where it really shines for me is in the fight scenes. Just listen to that sound. There's a visceral realism to it that frankly is missing in most other films' fight scenes. Take this scene in Die Hard, which is arguably one of the greatest action films of all time, a film even I love, but listen to that. I don't even know what that sound is, but it doesn't sound like fists crunching into a body to me. Getting hit hurts a lot. Throwing a punch hurts a lot. And I just don't feel that when watching this scene. And sadly, this is how I feel when watching fight scenes in most movies. There's just no sense of realism. Even when it's choreographed well, the sound just isn't believable. And while realism isn't the goal of every film, it's still worth acknowledging how effective the sounds are in the fight scenes in Fight Club. Not only does Fincher not shy away from blood or bruising, but that sound effect just adds a whole other layer to the power of these scenes. Honestly, it seems like it has a lot to do with why the film was so controversial upon release. Outside of the support group scenes that rubbed some people the wrong way, mostly it seemed to be the incredibly harsh nature of the fight scenes that sparked controversy. And I can see why. I mean, let's see what happens when we change the sound effects to your more standard fare.
We started off by pulling the punches off of the CD sound effects libraries, you know, that have been used in every movie. It just doesn't feel real. Traditional Foley punch is you take a sham, you wrap it around celery for a bone crack, and you snap it over a pit, and there's all these techniques to get it, and it's very dry. So we started off with those sounds, and then we started experimenting with, we gotta make it more, you know, the images that was coming in were very, you know, gory. So they thought, well, let's take carcasses of chickens and hit those. And so we started doing that, but they didn't quite work. So then we thought, okay, let's put walnuts inside of the chickens, mic that, and then crunch that. We layered these meat punches with the walnuts with the traditional punches and then offset them and kind of EQ'd some of the brightness down. We ended up punching ourselves in the chest. So we got into quite a kind of a strange territory of sound.
Without the proper sound to match the visuals, it just doesn't carry the same weight. And I think the sound designers Ren Kleiss and Richard Hims deserve a lot of credit for the effects they created. Sound designers, or Foley artists are probably the most underrated jobs in all of cinema, because if they're doing their job right, you're not even supposed to notice. When done well, you would never know those sounds were created in a studio and not captured the day of shooting. And it goes further than just creating ambience to a scene, or something like a realistic punch effect, but creating sounds that don't even exist in our world. Like this one. Chances are you already know exactly what that sound comes from. But how? It's just a combination of the idle sound of a projector and the hum of a TV recorded from the right angle. But we all know that's the sound of a lightsaber, and a blaster is just a slinky stretched out and then struck. That is the power of good sound design, making our ears believe a lie. It's how you can use a soundbite of bacon cooking, cut it underneath some footage of rain, and no one can tell that it's out of place. Where a good film score will often be credited for part of what makes a film memorable, all too often good sound design goes underappreciated. But it's an integral part of what can make a film great. I mean, just try and imagine Star Wars without the sound of the lightsaber, or Chewbacca's growl, or Darth Vader's breathing, and I don't think we need to revisit what Fight Club would sound like with different effects. Sound design can absolutely make or break a film, and while Fight Club has many things going for it besides good sound design, I feel that the work of Ren Klyce and Richard Hims are every bit a part of what makes Fight Club so great.